Good day everyone. So the Genshin devs have said that combat, especially with Spiralbus, can create anxiety for Genshin players, and yet on the other hand we are constantly told that Genshin is an easy game, that you don't need to spend a cent. You can, as an F2P, absolutely destroy this game just using a few starter units, all hell Shangling. In fact, people have gone out of their way to make it their careers on YouTube and on Twitch. The majority of YouTube guides sort of showcase to you how you, as an F2P, specifically that terminology, F2P, can beat the game in a very sensible, comfortable manner. And yet we have this big conflict where some people genuinely feel anxious, some people genuinely struggle with the combat and the content, even though the game is sort of seen by a lot of other players as being very, very easy. So what gives? Well, we know it is account progression, and it kind of makes sense if you think about it. An F2P player that's AR55, that's for the first time playing floor 12 of the Spiral Abyss, is going to be way more anxious than the guy that's been playing for 2 years as an F2P that's AR60, that's got a large variety of characters on their roster, they've farmed artifacts, and this is kind of the weird thing. Hoyo tries to cater to these players that have not progressed as far. We know this because they keep on, it seems like every single patch they keep on nerfing enemies, and yet Hoyo themselves are responsible for gatekeeping the progression. And think about how this works. If you're a new player and you start off this game, there's so much content for you to experience that will push your AR, your adventure rank, up very, very quickly, which will have the resulting effect that your world level gets pushed up very, very high. But the one thing that gatekeeps you is the resin and the progression that you can make on a daily basis. You just cannot simply grind it out. You have to literally wait it out, unless you're of course willing to spend some money. And the other form of gatekeeping in this game is that even if you could somehow magically go as fast as possible for all the cutscenes, get as much primo gems as a new player, you've learned all the tips and tricks and guides and whatever, you still have a problem that getting a new strong 5-star character is locked behind a limited time banner. So even if you do somehow manage the progression, you don't have the variety in your account to effectively handle a lot of challenges, and this naturally leads to a frustrating gameplay experience. It leads to a frustrating experience because you cannot beat the enemies. There's no real clear path other than literally just waiting until there are new characters coming out. And the other thing that you, as a sort of casual player, sort of sees the moment you start interacting with the Genshin community is that everyone is completely opinionated as to who you should be pulling for, and by the way, that must always be Xingshu, Xiangling, and Bennett. And as a sort of new player, this can actually give you a bit of anxiety because you are now told that if you do not have these units that you might not even like, you're not going to perform as well, especially as an F2P. And it is totally understandable why things are moving in the casual direction, because I think the sheer number of casual players together with the sheer churning, in other words, players getting into Genshin and then hopping off and not never ever touching it again, being so high, is a reason why Hoyo has decided to focus on something like the TCG, because the TCG in and of itself does not actually depend on your account progression. You only need to be adventure rank 30. It's it's a very low bar, I think, or it's a very low requirement to actually get to a point of experiencing that content, and you will not effectively gonna really miss out because none of it is tied to a banner, none of it is tied to resin or any of that, and a lot of people can just sort of get into it without any real stress and so on. And especially for players that are new to the game, the format or the elements that make up TCG can actually help them understand what kind of game they're playing. So in TCG, we obviously know that you get like elemental reactions and certain modifiers and stuff, and you can understand how this might be a very simplistic way of communicating some of the game's principles to people that are casual. This might actually be what Hoyo's big strategy is for TCG. Of course, just take what I've just said with a grain of salt. I really don't know. I'm just putting on a tinfoil hat and guessing here, but this seems to be the logical thing. Do I agree with it? No, I absolutely do not. I think the game direction can easily be sort of changed to accommodate players and reward players that have had good account progression, that have been loyal to the game, and also accommodating the casual side. It's not that difficult. I've spoken about this many times. Laning systems, token systems for rewards, and all these sorts of good things can easily solve a lot of these problems. But ultimately, it's going to be in Hoyo's hands. And to be quite honest, I don't think playing a different game is a very good piece of advice you can give to people, precisely because if I have to now go and play a new game, it's going to take a lot of time and investment. And this is also the other thing: the purpose for games, in the words of the people that so love to speak out in my comment section, is precisely to relax. And I agree, this is what makes Genshin so much fun. You've got enough to relax, and you've got enough for you to dig your teeth into when you're feeling that bit of, I want to have a bit of combat. And this is the thing: if I now have to play a new game, then suddenly I have different forms of entertainment all competing for my limited time and limited attention. And this is exactly why I started playing Genshin, because, well, it's a good game that can fulfill, that need to relax and have entertainment and all these sorts of things. But now to sort of move away in a quasi sort of state and to just play, on occasion, for me it doesn't work. As someone that works full time and all these sorts of things, I like Genshin precisely because it does not have the full competitive pressures like the competitive shooters and stuff, and I can certainly dictate my own tempo. And this is why I like the game. But honestly, what I liked about the game is being taken away progressively by Hoyo. And the biggest sort of complaint that I've got is that all my progression does not mean anything. All the loyalty and time spent is sort of just, it's a slap in the face. Oh well, I'm done. Cheers.